It has been a long time, but we're not going to get into anything else other than the books that I want to discuss with you today. Now, these are the books that basically kind of shaped my childhood. I read these fairly often as a kid between the ages of 8 and 12, which I would say is the age bracket for these. I was homeschooled, and so my mom's key ponent in our education was excellent literature. Anyway, these are the Nina Rhodes books. They were early 1900s published, and I recently acquired them from my mother, and I was like, oh, let's take a trip down memory lane. So this kind of starts off the series that I wanted to do, which was rereading all the books from my childhood. I had collected several Christian fiction books over the past few years where I really wanted to like reread them and kind of revisit my thoughts on them. But we're moving again, and so a lot of those kind of went to the thrift store, and I'll just have to accumulate them in some other way, shape, or form. But along with your typical books that everybody remembers, the Five Little Peppers, Laura Ingalls books, Little Women, Secret Garden, all of those was these Nina Rhodes books. And similar to maybe like the Bobbsey Twins or the Happy Hollisters, I think Bobbsey Twins are a little more popular than Happy Hollisters. But in a similar vein to all of them, they typically have kind of a similar storyline. Maybe details are changed, maybe they bring in different characters or classes or whatever. But for a child that is just, between the ages of, I think, 8 and 10 especially, where they are developing a stronger reading mind. They go from reading C. Dick and Jane, for lack of a better word. My mom actually didn't use that book. She didn't like that book. But, the cat is on the mat. The dog ran and jumped over the fence. Whatever it is. These kind of are a simple storyline where a child is more developing a love of reading rather than complex story narratives, if all of that makes sense. So anyway, I'm going to revisit these. I'm going to share my thoughts. As much as I really enjoyed reading these, the overlying thing is that I will not be keeping them. I just need to really be selective on what I keep on my shelves. And I know my girls aren't really going to be interested in these, and I doubt my grandkids would, so they're going to find a new home. With that, let's kind of get started in here. This is probably the one that is most loved. There's actually a couple pages missing in here. That is the story of Brave Little Peggy. And Brave Little Peggy is probably, even though it's been well read and loved as an adult, probably my least favorite that I've read so far. Peggy is a young girl that has lived with her grandmother. The grandmother has since passed away, and she's kind of a frail little thing. And so her aunt, who's kind of naive, is not very a good mother herself, thinks that it would be better to live with her and her children, even though her children are kind of like up the ladder. Anyway, Peggy ends up getting sick, and they're like, okay, we need to send her somewhere else. So she goes from California to New York for her health. Usually it's the reverse, but whatever. And she ends up staying with her older brother and sister, which is something that she's always wanted to do. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Her sister is a flighty young lady. She's always got engagements. She's always gone. And she thinks having her sister is a lovely thing, but she doesn't have time for it. The brother is a mischievous brother who kind of looks at Peggy as a little one to kind of tease, and of course Peggy dislikes it. And Peggy doesn't know how to really fit in with the New York culture. And so she ends up helping like some of the street children, and of course that's like a no-no for your class and other things like that. And so all she wants is her sister's love, her brother and sister's love, and they are kind of hiding a secret that Peggy's going to go back to California because they just don't have time to take care of a little girl in their life. Anyway, bunch of circumstances happen. Usually in all of Nina Rhodes' stories, there's some kind of lost relative that ends up back in the picture, and this is no exception. And, you know, all's well that ends well. It's a very Hallmark kind of a storyline where, again, a lot of them have a similar pattern to them, just little different variations of that. So this one, I kind of enjoyed reading it and certain things, but wasn't necessarily my favorite. I'm currently finishing this one, but I remember a lot of this. This is The Girl Next Door. The Girl Next Door is blind, and our main character, which I can't remember her name, I think it's Gladys. Joy is the blind girl. Gladys. Gladys is the rich girl next door. Joy is the blind girl next door. And Gladys is kind of a get whatever she wants kind of girl, and Joy just lives her name. She finds joy in everything. And Gladys learns a lot from the little girl next door, and of course, as all Nina Rhodes books go, she learns a lot from somebody else, Joy, and Joy's sister, and kind of what they have to deal with. They have no idea if they have a grandfather or not. He kind of alienated them when the mother married somebody she shouldn't have married, and Gladys kind of stumbles upon some things that end up helping them out. So again, a lot of these, again, for the 8 to 12-year-old, they have similar storyline, and I can only imagine that in the early 1900s these were kind of more adventure type books. You know, girls get to go out on the streets unsupervised, or were neglected by the nurse, it was nurse then, and so they end up in scrapes and whatnot. For today is kind of a little bit more of a what's the word, they're a little bit more of dated type of stories. Little Queen Esther. Queenie or Esther is a young girl and her brother. The father has died, and the brother is just trying to make a go of it, and he cannot afford to keep both of them. So he goes to the insensitive, there's a nice way to say it, insensitive aunt and uncle, and says, okay, I can't take care of my sister. I'll do what you suggest, which is give her up for adoption to a lovely family so that she can at least have food, and I will go to work at your firm even though it's not what I want. And of course they're like, oh, we're such good human beings. We know what's best for you, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, but the aunt tells Esther she's not allowed to contact her brother because that would make the new family sad. The new family has another underlying story going on. You could kind of sense that the mother has some, I don't want to say like dark secret. I mean, that makes it more scandalous than it really is. I mean, to me, I was just like, huh, interesting. But Queenie kind of realizes that there's a little neglected girl next door, Polly, I think her name is. I'm also getting over a cold. It is Polly. Polly Proctor, that's where the per. There's a little girl next door who's very neglected, and Queen Esther, notices that her new mom, who she dubs as an aunt, she just can't call her mom, is really taken to her and kind of pretends to be this little girl's fairy that watches over her. So she's starting to really pay attention, like, what is going on here? There's a lot more, obviously, to the story. But in the end, it's kind of like, well, is she ever going to be reunited with her brother, whom she loves and thinks about all the time, but never talks about? is there more to this little girl next door with Queenie's new mother aunt relationship? Seems really invested in her. Kind of what's the storyline there? Anyway, probably in terms of storyline, this one was probably my favorite as an adult. However, I have to say I really enjoyed these. These are like 3 short stories that Nina Rhodes did, and the Priscilla of the Doll Shop is only the first one. And then there's another one called Lulu's Penance, and Lulu then plays a role in these next 3 books. You kind of get more of her story in there. And then the last one was Eva was 7. And I don't remember too much about Eva. Like, what was Eva's... Oh, Eva's pen... Oh! Eva's story also plays a role in these. Eva does something naughty and she kind of decides she's going to go be a beggar, and it's kind of like her experiences with being a beggar, to do penance when she leaves her toys out and her aunt trips over them, and you know, obviously she's killed her aunt because her aunt tripped over the toy. Ha ha ha, very cute. Can you even see?
Yes.
Is it harder to see?
It's like kind of a little bit harder.
Yeah, so maybe don't strain your eyes trying to use glasses you don't need. However, Lulu's Penance. So story time. My mom had the complete Elsie Dinsmore series, and I know that as Elsie Dinsmore got older, and kind of the older Elsie Dinsmore I enjoyed more, but I really did not like the first and I think the second Elsie Dinsmore series. I did not like Elsie Dinsmore at all. Like, she is the model for every good little Christian girl to be, and I did not like her. I thought she was a brat. I thought she was manipulative, and I didn't like her at all. And in Lulu's Penance, the good girl gives Lulu Elsie Dinsmore to read as kind of somebody to aspire to. And this is why this story is my favorite. In the end, you find out that the aunt, I think it's the aunt. Aunt Daisy kind of talks about some of the things that, you know, she doesn't really think Elsie Dinsmore is one to aspire to. And then Lulu draws her own conclusions, and this is what she says. "You don't approve of Elsie Dinsmore?" exclaimed the girl that loaned the book. "No, Minnie, I don't. I'm very sorry if it hurts your feeling, but I can't help it. I don't think she ought to have felt she knew better than her papa about things, not even playing the piano on Sunday. Perhaps he wasn't a good man, but he was her papa anyway, and I don't believe it can be right for little girls ever to think that they know more than their relations. No, not even for the sake of converting people or going to be missionaries." Bam, yes ma'am. Elsie Dinsmore in this whole, if you don't understand what that is, Elsie Dinsmore in this whole conundrum that she ends up being is her father, I think, actually wanted her to read the newspaper when he wasn't feeling well on Sunday. And she ends up throwing a fit and sobs and everything. "I can't do it, Father. Today is only Sunday and it's the Lord's Day and we can only read the Bible." And of course he gets angry, like, "Well, the Bible also tells you to obey your parents and you are being very disobedient right now, so you must go to bed. I can't deal with this," because he's not feeling well. And then she ends up almost dying from the traumatic of it. No joke. It's whatever. Didn't like it. Whatever. So that's why I really like that one. There's obviously more to the story in Priscilla of the Doll Shop. You have a poor girl living with, again, themes. You have rich kids, poor kids. Poor girl living with an aunt who's not even an aunt. It's just somebody that took her under her wing because she no longer had any relations to take care of her. There's a young man that kind of enters the picture. And then Priscilla ends up going to an invalid's house to bring a doll, and they kind of strike up a friendship. And then the invalid has a long lost relation that she wants to see once again for Christmas. And full circle, who is that relation? I don't know. Who could it be? Who else is in the story that is also missing relations? No, it's not Priscilla. Lulu's penance. Lulu's penance had to do with the aunt and the tripping and whatever. And then when Eva was 7, no, so Eva is not. I said Eva was the one that left and was the beggar. It's not. Oh, Eva has to do with her mother is coming back. She hears that her mother actually originally wanted a boy and she's a girl, but she loves her mother so much that she will do anything for her mother. So she tells the stable hand boy that they must switch places. She's going to go live with his parents and be the little girl that she's sure they've always wanted, but more importantly, the boy has to go live and be the son that her mother had never had. And that's what that was. Because in the minds of a 7-year-old, that completely and totally makes sense. So that's what that one was. Okay, so I think the best one to start with is Winifred's neighbors. So Winifred lives with her aunt and uncle, and she's a lonely little girl that just wants some playmates, and the aunt is always busy with engagements. Theme in these books. Nina, what kind of life did you lead? And in trying to find friends, she ends up coming across a family who's got a loving mother and father, and she just would love to be in a similar boat of having a loving mother and father rather than a aunt that gives her whatever affection she has left after the end of the day. And kind of turns out that Winifred has a past that is somewhat scandalous according to the Elsie. Elsie's a bully in this one, so I don't think Nina Rhodes liked Elsie Dinsmore at all because she made Elsie a bully. The name Elsie. The only time we ever see Elsie in any of these books, she's a bully in the school. And so there's kind of like this cloud that Winifred is under. It turns out Winifred does have a mother and father. They are not dead as she assumed. They are in California because her father was accused of stealing something and he's in jail, and the mother would not leave the father's side. So they sent Winifred away so that at least Winifred would have some kind of good upbringing. Winifred goes next door to start reading to an invalid man who cannot get up. That's what an invalid is. He's stuck on the couch all day, and she kind of brings some sunshine to him. And turns out he's connected in all of this in some way, shape, or form, but you don't figure out how until the end. From there, kind of Winifred and these two books, they're kind of all connected with similar stories. So children on the top floor, I believe, also has Winifred, and she's on the downstairs. The children on the top floor are the poor children, and so Winifred kind of does what she can to help invalid Jack kind of experience life when his sister, I don't remember her name, Betty, kind of tries to give him as much of a life as she can. Winifred takes him under her wing, changes their life, and this is like more of a shorter book than the rest. But she ends up changing their life. They have a complete turnabout of circumstances, and everybody lives happily ever after. But then you have Winifred coming back into the story. You've got 2 more children, and how that gets all changed. Then you have the other Sylvia. The other Sylvia is about a girl named Sylvia who joins this King's Daughter group, and they have to do something magnanimous in order to earn the King's Daughter crown or whatever. Anyway, her thing is to find another girl named Sylvia that she can be a sister to. And she has a nanny who's always talking about this little girl, Rosie. And her whole idea of finding another Sylvia is like having another Miss Rosie that her nanny, can kind of enjoy as well as she did Miss Rosie. Sylvia loves the Miss Rosie stories. They were instrumental in kind of creating her character in a way. And she's, again, a neglected girl whose father is always out on business and doesn't know her very well. Well, it turns out that Miss Rosie, the nurse, the nurse to Miss Rosie, who's also the nurse to Sylvia, Rosie is Sylvia's like older sister, and she married somebody that father didn't approve, and Sylvia, the other Sylvia, is now her niece. So it's like her sister's daughter. And then they all come about and life works out grand that way. Like I said, a lot of these have like a hallmark, wrap it up with a big red bow type of thing. And they're just modern fairy tales for the children of the early 1900s. And they're just fun, sweet little stories. And it was a great walk down memory lane. I have one other one to read. And I've actually never read this before. So I don't know if I'm not going to get to this today, and I have to go, and I will be gone all day tomorrow. And I really did want to get this filmed. But this is actually Nina Rhodes' like juvenile fiction. So these girls are all like 13 and older, whereas those, again, usually between the ages of 7 and 11. So I am interested. I have never read this one. I do not remember anything about it. I don't think I ever read it. My mom just probably had it on the shelf. But by this age, I was in my Christian fiction stage and inhaling like Journals of Courtville Hollister and Sophie's Heart and all of those that I will talk about one day. And D. Henderson's. Love D. Henderson. So I will get to this and either put this as a end part to this little review, or it will have another clip elsewhere. We're not sure, but yeah. All right, I did end up finishing this book, and I'm getting ready to. Okay, you can read it. I'm getting ready to edit the video, so I was like, let's do the review. So I had a long drive yesterday. 4 hours my daughter could drive, and 4 hours I had to drive. So the 4 hours my daughter drove, I used that time to read this book. So that kind of tells you that even though it's like a good size hand-holding book, because of the older layout, it reads very quickly. This is probably what would be considered more YA of the early 20th century. This was published about 1907. And this has a little bit of Louisa May Alcott's Old-Fashioned Girl feel to it, but in a different aspect. So our main character, Marion, she was taken under the wing by her aunt when her mother died. Her older brother and sister ended up taking care of the rest of the family, but the aunt ended up taking Marion to kind of help out. And it's not even a real aunt, it's kind of what she calls an aunt, just a good friend of her mother's. And so Marion's kind of grown up in a more wealthy New York. And for as sweet a character as she is, she's not like a dislikable Nellie Olson character. She's just a prig. She loves high society. She kind of more or less turns up her nose at the lower class people. And her aunt has been trying, her aunt has been trying really hard to raise her up well, to not think, you know, to not use her wealth and status as a means of identifying herself. I hope I'm making sense in that. Anyway, so Marianne in the story, her and her aunt kind of goes away for the summer. Well, this summer, her aunt is going to be a companion to kind of a sick elderly lady. So she ends up sending Marianne back to her own family, to her brother and sister. And Marianne has like these grandeur ideas of basically refining her country bumpkin relations that she doesn't tell anybody she has because she's kind of ashamed of it. And it kind of turns out that these country bumpkins are a sweet family, sometimes even more educated than Marianne is, because they enjoy education for education's sake, whereas Marianne just sees it as something to do because she is required for her standard and class. So it's kind of a sweet story in that you kind of learn she's humbled. She kind of goes through the difficulties and basically builds her character. The one thing that I didn't enjoy, it's maybe too strong of a word or phrase or whatever. I feel like in a lot of the older books, when it comes to like learning a lesson, they learn it, but in the easiest way possible. So her brother is away at Yale, so now he's like a refined gentleman, and he comes and he's just loves to be with his country family, and she's very confused why he treats them as if they're equals and everybody isn't equal, and he's like, why would I treat them differently? They're good folks. What is your problem here? And so she kind of confessed, and she ends up that she lies that, you know, she said they were a different name when her city friends end up in the country and come across her, and she's like, I don't want them to know who they are. This is embarrassing. And he loses it. Like, you find our family who's good, kind, and beyond this embarrassing because they are not at a level that you think they should be at. And he kind of gets upset. She realizes she's been an idiot. And here's where I get like, so instead of her living through her shame, confessing to people, having to kind of own up to the mistakes that she made, she ends up getting lost in the woods, ends up really sick with like a type of pneumonia, and almost dies, and everybody forgives her. And even though she has to live with what she did, she doesn't necessarily, because yes, people were upset, and then they realized, oh, we're gonna lose her, I can't be upset with her. It's just too convenient. So some things that I just don't like about that, it's like, oh, that a little too convenient, isn't it? You almost die, and suddenly it doesn't matter that you would have to live with consequences of people having to learn to trust you again because you almost died. So therefore, that's not what they're gonna do. Other than that, I really enjoyed it. So I actually am going to end up keeping this one because I can see me reading that again and kind of enjoying it like I do Old Fashioned Girl, and some of the older classics. But yeah, that's going to be the wrap up of this video. Even though I didn't necessarily read that as a child, I am including it in this video because that is the last Nina Rhodes book that I have and I own, and it just makes sense to kind of put it with this video. All right, so I will catch you on the next one. Until then, all of that I've already pre-recorded, and we'll share that moment right now. I thought that would be kind of fun to share with you if anybody had ever heard of these. If you have heard of them, leave them down below. If you've read any, leave it down below. I would love to know. Only Dolly, I think, was Nina Rhodes' most popular one, but I think that is one that we probably read to death. Our Peggy, Brave Little Peggy, was another one that's been pretty well read to death, but as an adult was kind of my least favorite. So there you go. I thought it would be kind of fun to start going down this memory lane, as I said, kind of share some of these thoughts with you, and I will catch you on the next one. But until then, have another cup of coffee and read another chapter.